Get me that signal. We need more power.
Welcome aboard, cadets. I am Captain Cork. As you know, it is a great privilege to serve aboard the flagship of the fleet. Under me, Captain Cork. I have assembled the greatest collection of officers and crew in the fleet up to and including my cat, Little Shat. Quiet, Little Shat. Before you can serve on this ship, you'll need to pass a comprehensive evaluation. You and your fellow ensigns will be called upon to compete against other ensigns in a simulated ship-to-ship space battle. One of you will be the captain, one of you will man the helm, one will control weapons, and one will be in engineering. Your task is to defeat the other ship, and if you want to remain on my ship, I suggest you don't lose. You'll have to think and act quickly. Let me give you an overview of your task by reading this. Space Cadets Dice Duel is a fast and furious game of starship combat. Players are divided into 2 teams, and each team has to work together to outmaneuver and outthink the opponents. Each ship has 6 bridge stations manned by the players. Engineering generates power for the other stations. Helm maneuvers the ship on the map. Weapons loads the torpedo tubes to attack an enemy. Sensor locks onto the enemy. Sensors lock onto the enemy and use jammers to stop enemy attacks. Shields help protect the ship from enemy torpedoes. Tractor beams can grab crystals, move the enemy ship, and launch mines. There are no game turns in Space Cadet Dice Duel. Players roll dice to operate the station on the ship as quickly as they can, creating an exciting, tense, and highly interactive experience. Space Cadet Dice Duel is based on the award-winning game Space Cadets. Are you ready to get down to specifics? Good. Mr. Miller will go over your SOP. Mr. Solo, on screen, please.
Space Cadets Dice Duels from Stronghold Games is a frantically paced spaceship combat game between 2 teams of players. The game is for 4 to 8 players, ages 12 and up. The board is set up with the 2 ships on their starting spaces on each side of the board, over there and over there. And each player will be assigned a station or stations on their team's ship. We'll go over each station now. So first up is engineering. Engineering is the crux of the ship. You have 6 regular dice when running engineering, and the engineer will roll these dice and use the results to power up the other stations on the ship. For example, rolling a 5 will power the helm. The engineer passes the 5 that he rolled over to the helm, who can then pick up one of their own dice and begin rolling to move the ship. The engineer can keep rolling the dice to get more 5s to give to the helm, and then the helm can roll more dice. So, for example, I'm rolling dice, right? Rolling. Oh, and there's a 5. So I take this 5 and I send it over to the helm. Right here, right? The helm has these 3 dice. Well, he now has this 1 5, so he can pick up one of his yellow dice and start rolling them. And the helm die has different movements on it. Like this is 1 space forward. This is 2 spaces forward. This is go 1 space forward and turn around 180 degrees. This is go 1 forward and turn left, and then there's go forward and turn right. So you will plot each of those moves. Now he gets to put that 1 there, and then he gives that die back to the engineer. The engineer keeps rolling his dice. He's rolling. He's trying to get more 5s. Here's another 5, so he gives it to the helm. And the helm picks up another of his dice. And the helm can't move until he fills up all 3 spaces with his moves. The minute he does that, then he can move the ship. So let's say this was his moves. So he goes forward and turns left, and then he basically can't go anywhere because he just went off the edge of the board. And you go, "No, you fool!" and you fire the guy at the helm, screaming, "Why? So once the helm gets the results they desire, they pass the dice back to engineering, who then begin rolling them again in order to power other stations, or even the helm again. So in essence, engineering provides the power for every other station. As I said, the helm station actually moves the ship. You need to power up 3 helm dice before the ship can be moved. So all 3 of these spaces on the helm have to be filled with your dice before you can move the ship. Each die goes onto one of the spaces when the desired result is reached, but you can't change them or remove them until all spots are filled with moved dice. Then the helmsman moves the ship in the indicated direction shown on the dice and removes them from the board. And then he's all ready to get powered up with more dice again. Your goal is to get the enemy ship into your sights. So, you want to get over like here while this guy's coming this way, and you're like, I will shoot you. See? Your ship has 4 torpedo tubes, 2 front and 2 rear, that can be loaded and fired into the applicable firing arc in front or behind the ship. And it shows the firing arcs here. Which brings us to the weapon station. The weapons are activated by rolling a 1 on the engineering dice. Each torpedo has 3 parts: a front, a middle, and a rear. So there's the nose, there's the middle, and then there's the rear. And you have to roll dice until you get the results to complete an entire torpedo. When all 3 slots on the torpedo are filled, it's considered loaded. Each player only has 6 red dice, so you can only have 2 loaded torpedoes at the same time. So, 1 in front, 1 in back, or 2 in front and 2 in back. When a team is prepared to launch their attack, they announce that they are firing their torpedoes. Fire 1 or fire 2, and then everything stops until the attack is resolved. The weapon station also rolls when one of their torpedoes hits an enemy's shields. So the weapons dice have sides for 1 or 2 hits as well. There's 1 hit, and there's 2 hits. You roll 1 die per torpedo, and you need to roll 1 hit per shield in order to penetrate and cause damage to the enemy's ship. Each ship can take up to 3 points of damage and loses 1 energy die from engineering each time it receives 1 point. On the 4th hit, the ship explodes and the game is over. So, speaking of shields, the shield board is activated by passing a 4 in the engineering dice. Players can start rolling their shield dice and place them on the sectors they wish to have once they get that, that 4 rolled and the die is passed over to them. Each of the 4 quadrants of the ship can have up to 3 active shields, but you only get 3 shield dice to use anyway. Each quadrant requires a specific roll on the dice in order to place the shield on that spot. For example, if you roll this, triangle with 3 dots, well, that can only go behind the ship, right? You need a triangle with 2 dots to go on this side, or triangle with 4 dots to go on this side. And now the sensor board aids you in firing by providing target locks and can jam the other player, making it more difficult for them to hit you. You can have up to 2 target locks per die, or 2 jammers per die from the 4 sensor dice that are provided. So these are target locks. That's 2 target locks, 1 target lock, 2 jammers, 1 jammer. When you attack the enemy ship, you determine if you're successful by first counting the range, which is always the number of rows between you and the ship and your opponent, regardless of what column that they're in. So right here, you can see the range is 1, 2. But even if I was over here, the range would be 1, 2. Okay? You just count the rows. And then you add the number of jams they have on their sensor board. If you have equal or greater weapons lock points than this number, then your attack will hit. So let's say they have no jams and on their board, and you have 4 weapons locks. So you've got 2 of those and 2 more over here. And the range is only 2, you would hit because 4 is higher than 2. But if they had some jams on their board, you would have to equal their number or beat it. You'll still need to determine damage based upon the number of shields. Finally, the tractor beam station allows you to gain crystals. There's this tractor beam station to move that allows you to move the other player's ship or deploy mines. The crystals are placed at specific locations at the start of the game, and you'll need to double the current range in tractor beam power in order to pull a crystal onto your ship. These can be spent to set a specific die to the result you want, or to warp the ship quickly to another location, or to replace a lost energy die. You don't get the damage back, but you can get the die back at least. You can also use the tractor to move the enemy ship 1 square in any direction. You need the same strength as required by the crystal rules, which is double, you'd need double the amount of energy. Finally, you can place a mine using the included mine tokens, and these will cause 1 point of damage if hit by an enemy ship. Don't think that you can pull the enemy ship into a minefield, though, because at most each ship can place 2 mines. In the heat of battle, this is pretty much the most ignored station. You're usually not thinking about crystals or mines while you're racing to get into strike position, but it adds some interesting options that are there if you choose to utilize them. So players start rolling and passing dice to begin the game, and this pretty much continues until one of the ships explode and the game is over. It is much quicker than you would think, and the game only lasts from 15 to 30 minutes. That's how you play Space Cadet Dice Duels. Although, let me say one thing, it's much easier to see. Now that you've got an explanation of it, you can go watch my other video where I show people playing it at Gen Con, and you'll understand what they're doing, and you'll get an idea of what happens while you're playing it. It's a lot of fun, it's really frantic, and people are yelling and throwing dice all over the place and back and forth, and everybody's rolling dice. It's really cool, but it depends on the type of player and the type of gaming group you're in, whether you're going to like the game or not. So that's how you play Space Cadets Dice Duels.
In a 4-player game, the stations are divided up and the engineering dice are shared between the 2 players on each side. Although each player is controlling multiple stations, it is actually easier to figure out what to do between 2 players per side than 3 or 4. However, it is not nearly as much fun. 3 players per side has a dedicated engineering player, with the other 2 players dividing the other stations. It is probably the most frantic way to play, as you are rolling and trying to keep in touch with what is happening on the board. It's fun, with a lot of shouting and loudness. 4 players per side is the optimum number for challenging 2 teams. With 4 players per side, one is designated the captain, and they can direct the action on the table. They plan on where to go and what needs to be rolled next, and add some organization to the chaos of 3 players per side. In my opinion, the captain shouldn't even be sitting down at the table, but should be standing and overseeing all of the action so as to better direct their teammates. A few things of note about the game. First off, it is a minimum of 4 players. So if you typically don't play with at least 4 people, then this isn't the game for you. I've tried playing 1 person per side, and it works, but basically makes me wish that I had more players. which is probably why they don't recommend playing with one person per side. I found 3 or 4 players per side to be the most fun, but you'll need a table big enough for the group and be prepared for them to be loud. I expect this to be a great game to play at conventions, as it's so easy to learn and fun for bigger groups. The rules are well written and the components are great. They even mention that if you own the original Space Cadets, you can build a board using those tiles and play Dice Duel on them, which is neat. You could also put 2 copies of Dice Duels together and play a massive 4-team game. I'd like to see that one in action. I'm not sure fitting 12 or 16 people around a table is practical. The one improvement that I can think of is that there should be a way to roll a blank space on the movement dice to represent not moving, so that if you only wanted to move 1 or 2 squares, you could roll blanks to fill in the extra spots. You would still have to fill up the helm before you could move, but you wouldn't have to move at least 3 squares every time. After all, speed can be just as important as maneuvers in a battle. Thank you for joining me for this review of Space Cadets Dice Duel from Stronghold Games. Let me know if you found this review helpful by leaving a comment or sending me an email at elliott_miller@voiceofe.com. Make sure to subscribe to the Voice of E channel on YouTube, as I'll have plenty of gaming, entertainment, and comic book coverage this year, and it should be a lot of fun. You know, there's also a website, thevoiceofe.com, just so you know. Thanks again, and until next time, keep your mind free.